So after taking a look at Feg's Top World Grand Prix Mysterio deck, we're now moving on to the BloodCraft deck that a lot of players were taking into the World Grand Prix. So both Feg and Potwasher, both respective 1 and 2s, if you haven't watched the previous video, I highly recommend it. Is very impressive that they were both taking identical deck lists. I'd say this was an extremely popular list. I'm not sure if either of them was the originator or of course someone else was and they just picked up the deck from there. I don't have that kind of information. I wish I did, because it would be interesting to know the exact origin of this build in particular, if there is an originator or whether it was just something that was kind of filtered out. But considering the choices of 1 and 2 drops here, it's definitely no surprise. So taking, of course, the 2 Wings of Lust, 2 Pure-Hearted Singers, can't go wrong with those cards. Everything else is pretty stock standard as far as Dark Feast Bat Bloods go these days, although I would say it's still running the demons, as they are really good in a competitive format. Ladder format can be a little bit more iffy, but in a competitive format they're definitely pretty amazing. So we're going to get right into it and check it out. It's still a reasonably fast deck, so don't expect this video to be super long. So for our first match we are going up against a RuneCraft. No big shock there after the World Grand Prix. We've been seeing a lot of Dragon and Rune decks floating around. Not quite as much blood as I was expecting, I think because people are probably just over it, but that's the way to go. So typically with these sort of decks, I like to drop anything that isn't going to help me get a Florus early on, and after watching the World Grand Prix, I gotta say, seems to be a strategy a lot of players go for. Otherwise, if you realize you can't go for that early Florus, you really are just looking to push as much as you can early on, which is where people play like Razor Claw on 2 and stuff like that, and Servant of Lust. Like, this was something I had to make a decision on. Did I want to go Servant of Lust turn 2? Did I want to go Alexandrite Demon? I decided to go for Demon, mainly because Blazing Sapphire gives you a guaranteed ping in your turn. That means you can activate, potentially a lot earlier, your Florus on turn 5 or 6, which seems to be the strategy a lot of the competitive players go for. Activate on 5 or 6 instead of going for the earlier 3 or 4 plays and forcing it. So to get another chance to go for Alexandrite Demon. There's no reason not to at this point for me. We are overstacking our hand a bit, but considering we already have Dark Feast Bat and we've got triple Valkyrie, we don't really need to go for anything else. So it looks like we're going up against a pretty standard Mysterio deck. I wouldn't be surprised if it is Feg's Mysterio deck after, of course, like I said, the World Grand Prix. So we're going to be able to remove this pretty easily. And also get our Florus out, since we did have the Alexandrite activate as well. Blazing Sapphire does a wonderful job, as usual. And that's going to be a decent source of healing, as Rune doesn't really run any kind of banishment. Nope, so it's looking to be a more burn-based Rune deck. That's a good sign for me. And we're going to get a full heal here. And we're going for that ping again. So this time we have the Vera. I was debating on putting Wings of Lust onto Vera. Of course, I wouldn't be able to get much advantage out of that because they would probably kill it off before I could take full advantage of it. But kicking us right off there, getting me the extra damage was definitely more beneficial and still took us right up to 20 health. Plus, now to remove the Vera is going to take a lot more work. They're more likely to remove the 3-2 than remove the Vera. So that definitely worked in our favor quite a bit. So Servant of Lust does activate our Valkyrie, or Valkyrie. Slight pronunciation changes, I guess, based on how you want to say it, either way. Going face for quite a bit of damage. I decided to go all face to set up our Dark Feast Bat on turn 8. With 8 damage, we can quite easily take this game in the next turn, well before they could go for any kind of and sorcery play. Which is definitely how you want to do this with this deck. So it did set us up for a pretty perfect lethal. It tends to be the way you want to do things. No wonder this deck was used by so many competitives. After watching a lot of the World Grand Prix and of course playing this deck myself, over the course of the last month, I've definitely got to say it's got pretty decent matchups against both Dragon and Rune as far as it goes, because it's just a lot faster than Mysterio Rune in most situations, so it can be very hard for Mysterio Rune to come back off that. As far as Dragon goes, it can just hit face, which is hard for Dragon to deal with overall, unless they get a really good curve. That doesn't obviously make it the absolute best deck, in my opinion. It can still brick quite easily, or if you have just one tech card in your deck, you can pretty much drop out a few of the cards, which makes it easy. But as far as competitive play goes, you would definitely be taking a blood deck in your lineup, so it's no surprise that pretty much every big player that I'd watched was running some form of BloodCraft, and if they weren't, they were taking pretty much any other big deck. A few players are also running Shadow, which I would love to cover. Unfortunately, I'm just missing too many legendaries to make it worth my while in crafting up the competitive Shadow lists. Otherwise, I definitely would love to do that for you guys. But coming into the next expansion, most of these decks are going to change up, as they are losing a few cards. I mean, Snarling Chains, not going to be available. That's going to be a bit disappointing for Blood. But hopefully we'll be able to make that up. So I decided to go for the Evo and Pure Hearted go face. Haven is always a huge problem when it comes to getting in damage, so I decided I wanted to take as much early as I could. And considering what they would probably be playing here, I definitely needed to do so. Lucky I didn't lose the Pure Hearted Singer. I think that made a huge difference as far as board goes. And we're going to get a fairly decent amount of damage off this. And our own Bloodkin plus Razory, able to wipe the entire board quite easily. We're still set up for a decent Lust Valkyrie play, which we're probably going to use in the next couple of turns. Seraphic Blade, the bane of Era as far as things go. So, Wing of Lust, decided to use it on a bat again. This time I decided to just bat the buff right up. Buff the bat right up. Make sure I get my words around the right way. So we can go for a 7 damage heal, and we're going to take double ping, thus making Omen of Lust a viable option next turn. And with only 3 health remaining, getting victory shouldn't be impossible. It's definitely going to be tight though. I mean, we've got the option in the 3-2 there to draw into a card. Evilite Demon, that's not bad. I mean, it's not good because we are on turn 7. Actually, no, that would have... No, the Evilite Demon only hits me, doesn't it? So it wouldn't give me lethal, but the top deck Bloodkin definitely does. We also would have had another chance at drawing probably a Bloodkin or something off the Pure Hearted, so it wasn't going to be impossible to go for victory here. It was just a little less likely, and then next turn we probably would have cleaned up anyway, so glad we managed to win there. So I definitely enjoyed checking out some of these World Grand Prix decks. As I said, I would have loved to have checked out both Dragon and Shadow. They're the only kind of decks we were really missing out of the first and second place lineups between Feg and Potwasher, mainly just because I lack the few legendaries I would need to make them, and as I said, no point making those legendaries this close to the next expansion where I'm not even sure if they're going to be entirely viable. While I've got good feelings about Dragon's legendaries, Shadow's just, I really feel like there's going to be a change up there, so not worth it in this situation. But I hope you guys did enjoy checking out the Rune deck last video and the Blood deck this video. Both great decks. I can definitely tell they had a lot of thought when going into them, as when you play them you can just always find some form of out, it seems, especially on ladder where players aren't playing to a competitive level. So definitely an all-round just good deck. So if you guys did enjoy it, make sure to like button, subscribe, you'll find the deck in the description below. Until next time, see ya.